Now we have a leader for the United States of America that is, for some reason, really, really angry at our neighbor to the south and the people coming up here. Is it really worth putting the lives of our military and the people that are here legally or illegally in jeopardy? You have to figure that out. What is the real reason that President Trump wants all these people to be deported back to Mexico or Guatemala or wherever else? What is the real reason? And why is it so important? Do you really think the problems that we have here in the U.S. are because of people from another country living here? I don't think people have the integrity to admit their own errors. And if we are to close ourselves up to the good people to our south, our great neighbors to the south, then that would affect us in a very bad way that people just don't understand. They don't understand the people of Mexico. As you might know, me and my wife lived in Mexico for almost 5 years. There was a period of time where, for some reason, I couldn't get into my bank account anymore. I had been able to transfer money via a transferring app from the United States to an account in Mexico. And suddenly, because of security, I had to use ID. Okay, I had ID, but the app wouldn't accept it. I had to have brand new ID. And a good friend of mine in Mexico saw that I had no money anymore, and if it wasn't for someone's help, I'd probably starve. I did try calling my bank here in the U.S. from Mexico, and he pretty much told me their hands were tied. And the truth was, it was just too much of a bother for them, right? But my friend, seeing my dilemma and wanting to do the work of Jesus Christ, he came up with a solution. We took a bus together to Mexico City, which was kind of far from where I was in Mexico. I didn't know that you could just go to the embassy and get a brand new passport. He paid for it. I paid him back, but it was about 2,000 pesos, which is $100. How many people in the U.S. would say, hey, you're a friend of mine. I'll pay for this ID you need, $100. If you can pay me back, good. If not, then I'm doing the will of God and helping out my friend. He not only paid for that, but the bus fare, which was pretty expensive to Mexico City, and he brought boxes of food and water over until I could transfer money to the account I had in Mexico finally. These are the people that you will be sending back to Mexico and saying, our heart is too cold. We can't handle having any immigrants here. You're illegal, you broke the law, so now you gotta go to jail. Why don't we start treating our anger and our discontent before we start lashing out on other people? As you grow, as you get more mature, and you exercise your conscience, you realize that it's bullshit. Okay? Sorry for using that word, but it's the best way to call it. It's BS. People tell me all these things about the people of Mexico, and the truth is they're great people. You really should stay away from the border cities, but even there, they have a heart for you. If you're a military personnel or a police officer or have any other kind of high authority, especially if you believe in Jesus Christ, you will not be doing God's will by following what the president tells you to do if you are to harm people, to try to make the U.S. safe. You will not make the U.S. safer by being cold to our neighbors to the south. We have to look deep in our heart right now and say, who do we serve? Caesar or Jesus Christ? Our president is not Caesar, but the U.S. reminds me a lot of Rome. The U.S. is a lot like Rome. A very amazing place, powerful place, but it fell. And it didn't have to. And a lot of us can see this kind of thing coming because it's happened before. That's why I said we have seen this before in history, so we can see this coming. And people are just complacent and say, I have no time, I have no power. If you know anyone that works for a police department, who's in the military, even if they're just infantrymen, get the word out. We cannot just accept this coldness and evil. Yes, the people of Mexico suffer just like we do. You live there quite a long time, and you get to know the real truth. Yes, they feel the same way we do. They have the same feelings we do. And they're good people. It's actually very hard to get papers to come into the U.S. And once they've done that, it's probable that with the government being how it is, and this administration as it is, they'll still make it illegal for these people and then just throw them in jail. During President Trump's last 4 years, he had families at the border, mom, dad, children, all separated out and treated like monsters. Living in Mexico, sometimes people would say, hey, are you Trump's son? And I'm like, no, he is not my dad. And it wasn't a common thing, but some people who I knew or some of the people that known me would just joke around and say, hey, what do you, I hope that you don't agree with what the U.S. president has done. And I'm like, no, I don't. I think he's seared his conscience. And I recommend that we not sear our conscience, but exercise it. How can you say you're following the Lord Jesus Christ when you don't even know how to love your own people or your neighbor? Jesus talked about loving your neighbor so many times. He even said to love your enemy. So how much more to love your neighbor and to protect our own countrymen from going into unnecessary conflicts. And I can tell you right now, the people of Mexico are very strong, are very intelligent, and they're not going to be fooled by this kind of nonsense. And neither should you, because people in the U.S. are intelligent also. Just wake up and do the right thing. Thank you so much for watching my channel. This is David from Montaña Wildcat.